Welcome to Networking Basics, a course that will involve looking at the many components and parts of networking. And this is primarily about how machines communicate, how they talk with each other in a computing environment. And that is central to understanding how information technology works and how information systems are congregated, if you will, or integrated into the many different shapes and forms, both physically and logically, that they are in computing environments. So we will be looking at many things in networking basics. What is networking? The long and the short of it is the way in which the machines are connected and the media that is used to connect them and the way in which they find each other and talk to each other. Now that's a kind of a simple presentation, but there is a lot more to it that you're going to find out in this course. We will spend a lot of time looking at the standards, which are like the procedures, the rules, the relationships that have been created so that everyone plays on the same playing field when it comes to developing and creating these machines and getting them to communicate with each other. So we will look at all of that that's involved there from the standpoint of, say, wiring and topology, as well as models that serve as standards, like the OSI model and the 802.x standards, as well as the great TCP/IP protocol, which numbers in above 50 in the entire suite of protocols. There's actually more than one protocol in the entire model, and so we will look at in some detail when it comes to networking basics what these things are about, how they work together, and what it means to uh, use them. And you use them on a daily basis. You just don't really see that or think about it in that way. They certainly are a part of our everyday life today when we go to work, and we even have home networks where we are have devices that are communicating with each other. So networking basics is certainly about that. It's also about network administration. And when you uh, administer a network, you are doing more than just, connecting wires. You are also looking at many other components and things that are happening on a day-to-day basis in a network. The use of bandwidth, for example, and setting up user accounts and other kinds of administrative duties that you're going to do on a regular basis as a network administrator. So keep in mind that as you learn networking basics, you'll also learn about network administration. Now, there's really two sides to network administration, too. There's the day to day in and out structure of the network and maintaining that structure and keeping it up and running, so to speak. There's the other side is security. IT can be divided into the networking side and the IT security side, if you want to look at it that way. Many organizations that are quite large will divide these two functions of IT so that there is an administrative side and there is a security side, because it's sometimes best to divide them up function wise so that the IT security people can just keep focusing on improving security and maintaining security for the organization. On the administrative side, for example, if all of the email communication suddenly went down in an organization, it could be very, very disastrous to their ability to run the organization and to keep it profitable within minutes, not days or weeks, but within minutes, even a few hours could be very disastrous for the company. So when you study this material, you find there's a lot of terminology. And the terminology are usually not necessarily small words or easy words to grasp or to understand or to remember. But you'll have to learn these terms, learn what they mean, learn how to apply them, and by doing that, you'll become more fluent in talking about networking and what networking is about. You'll also find that we will look at the components or the little pieces of some of these protocols and how they are actually mapped out in terms of the digital signal itself. And what I'm talking about is toward the end of the course when, say, we look at the IP header or the TCP header. And we'll spend some time with that. Also, we'll be looking at IP addressing. This portion of the course is not about how to do IP addressing or IP subnetting. It is about how to understand it to begin with, the different classes of addresses and their use in networking. So you won't be an expert by the time it's through. You'll have some basic understanding. You'll also may not be able to subnet properly, but that's going to come eventually. We won't be discussing IP version 6 in detail either, but we should in advanced courses talk about IP version 6 and what the future lies with that as we improve our ability to have complete addressing for all devices in the world, all kinds of devices in the world. So again, we're looking at the whole world of networking and the basic terminology and the physical layout as opposed to, say, the logical way in which it is done. So there's two sides to that. You can walk into a room and you can see a physical layout of, say, 20 PCs, and you could, begin to guess about how it is physically, wired together, so to speak. But you may not have, say, a good picture of how it is logically put together, which has to do with topologies and other types of things too. So we will be investigating this to get you familiar into how to recognize, say, a topology and how to understand how it might be connected throughout the land in which you find yourself. So a lot of times we are just talking about local area network or tied to a physical location inside a building or perhaps on a particular floor. But also we'll be looking a little bit beyond that to LANs and MANs, metropolitan area networks, and the possibility that you could have multiple LANs inside, say, one building, and then across the street on the next corner, so to speak, you could have another set of LANs that are all connected, and yet they belong to the same network. We do mention that Active Directory is very prominent in networking. Active Directory is Microsoft's way of doing networking in a Microsoft Windows environment. It really is a object-oriented way of looking at networking and arranging objects, which everything in a Microsoft Active Directory network that's based on that model is an object. the users, the machines, the printers, the devices that are connected to all the machines are all objects, and even servers are objects as well. And there's a whole way to understand a directory listing of all of those objects in Active Directory. But again, this course is not about just that. That's a big part of networking in the Microsoft world, and it's a specialty how to understand networking using Active Directory with Microsoft Windows networks. But again, we touch on it so that you know about it and you're able to be a little conversant of it and recognize it or know about it when you hear about it. And you know that you are working in that kind of environment. There are full courses on just Active Directory and network administration of an Active Directory network. We'll also mention Wi-Fi and WiMAX, which are prevalent too, and the use of that in local area networks and MANs and WANs. We will again touch on it so that you have some kind of understanding where it belongs in networking and how it fits. This has, of course, led to the development of virtual LANs and virtualization software too, that has expanded the ability to reduce the number of machines required in a networked environment so that resources are more used to their full capacity and not just say 10% or 20% capacity of a server or a machine, a set of servers. Here, virtualization has a strong presence in VMware and other. Microsoft even has their own type of virtual. These even Cisco has virtual LANs with its using its routers and switches as part of that. But we're going to touch on many different subjects and many different ideas that belong to networking and get the basics so that you have really a working vocabulary and a working knowledge about what networking basically is about and what it is foundationally in the network environments in which you may work or which you may create even in your own home. You'll find that it's very interesting and it's very challenging to put the pieces together, to understand them both physically and logically in their application in a net. So put your feet on the ground and get ready. Try to spend as much time possible looking at the terminology and getting your minds around those words and what they mean and how they describe and give you the basis for how networking is achieved. Find security. There are issues deeply here with security when it comes to networking, and we will touch on those as well because the better your networking is going to be too in protecting assets and protecting the integrity of the network for your company and the people that you work with. The safety side of this is certainly there in premises, but here we're talking about the actual devices and hackers and people that can compromise the network and intrude upon it, and you need to be prepared to understand that as well. That's a big part of networking basics, as certainly anything else is. So at the end of this course, you should have a good working knowledge of what we're talking about here, and you'll be able to even talk with a network administrator about what he does on a day-to-day basis, keeping it up and running, and also IT security people who are also involved really in networking, but in securing the network and keeping it up and running in a different way so that it doesn't get compromised or misused in any way. So thank you for listening and look forward to talking with you again soon.